Most dangerous toys that were released to the public. Easy Bake Oven, which was recalled not once but 2 times in 2007 after several children burned their fingers getting caught in the miniature appliances. One girl even had part of her finger amputated.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG Reels, Facebook, anything weird, unusual, unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man. Just coming back to the channel, watching the videos entirely, man. Commenting down below. I greatly appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do best, seekers. Say it with me, y'all. Seek the truth.
I want to tell you about what I just learned today. Earth apparently has a heartbeat every 26 seconds because scientists have recently detected a rhythmic microseismic pulse coming from somewhere in the ocean, and its exact cause or location is still unknown. An FBI agent dressed in a gorilla costume helped arrest 2 Mexican zoo officials in 1993 as part of a sting operation. Our bodies have around 38 trillion microbial cells, which outnumbers our human cells, which total 30 trillion, which makes us more microbial than humus. Smell-O-Vision was an early attempt to enhance the movie theater experience by adding specific smells at specific moments of a movie. But how would a movie theater get rid of the smell? I don't know, that just sounds like a mess. I see why it never happened. There is a small pond in Antarctica that is so salty, the water does not begin to freeze until the temperatures fall below -50 degrees.
The most dangerous toys that were released to the public. Up first, we have clackers. Clackers were these balls you would smack together to create these really annoying noises. The acrylic balls would often crack or shatter into tiny shards that could then fly into your face and injure you. Another toy was called the Easy Bake Oven, which was recalled not once but 2 times in 2007 after several children burned their fingers getting caught in the miniature appliances. One girl even had part of her finger amputated. Barbie. The rollerblade Barbie had a cigarette lighter-like device in her skates that would legitimately shoot out sparks when rolled on a flat surface. If this rolled over anything flammable, you had a massive problem.
What were they thinking, man, when they were releasing some of those products, bro? The clackers, I remember that from Jake and Josh. Classic. I didn't know bring it to tiny shards, though. It just looked like a fun, harmless toy to me, man.
Let's talk about the Barbie and Ken killers. Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka met at a bar in Canada in 1987. They got married just 2 months later, and over the course of nearly 3 years, murdered at least 3 teenage girls. The first victim was Carla's little sister Tammy, who the couple drugged with animal tranquilizers. Second was 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey, who the couple brutally tortured and sexually abused before strangling Leslie and cutting her body up into little pieces and placing them into concrete blocks. The third victim, Kristen French, was abducted in 1992 and her naked body was found just 4 days later by police. This eventually led to the couple's arrest and both of them to be charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Carla was given a 12-year sentence, whereas Paul was given life in prison because Carla actually testified against him in court. Carla has been out of jail for a few years and is now married to her attorney's brother and has 3 children.
That was a chilling story, man. Dark world.
Let me tell you some crazy history you didn't learn in school. There were thousands of Holocaust survivors who passed away after being liberated because they ate too much food too fast. Melbourne, Australia was briefly named Batmania in the beginning after the settler who founded it, John Batman. There was a man who once tried to sell Madison Square Garden in New York. He did not own it, but he did get $35,000 before getting caught. In 1954, the CIA made up completely fake vampire attacks in the Philippines, complete with puncture marks and everything just to scare rebels. The CIA also tried to sabotage Fidel Castro by making him lose his beard using poison shampoo. One of the Apollo computers crashed mid-mission because one single line of code told it that the Earth didn't exist. In 1907, a woman was arrested in Chicago for wearing pants, so she brought a sewing machine to the courtroom to turn it into a skirt.
Animals that can kill themselves. Up first are mountain sheep. These sheep evolved to have incredibly strong horns that can take out any animal. However, their horns are actually the cause of their own death too. As their horns grow, they begin to penetrate their own neck, and as time passes, they continue to grow further and further, until eventually it kills them. Then we have deer. During mating season, many deer get into aggressive fights, and every time they do, they risk a horrible death. When they fight, their horns can get interlocked with the horns of other deer. Unless someone is able to shoot their horns to break them, they're stuck until they eventually die of starvation and thirst. Then we have turtles. If a turtle ever rolls over or falls on its back, it's impossible for it to get upright again. Like deer, unless another turtle or human can get them upright again, they die of starvation.
Some facts that'll make your day slightly better, part 1. When a human sees a puppy, a chemical called dopamine is released in the brain. Elephants also release dopamine when they see people, meaning that they think we're cute in the same way we think puppies are cute. There's a YouTube channel called Dad, How Do I that teaches young people things that would typically be taught by a father figure. From how to change a tire to how to tie a tie, fans of the channel think it's super helpful. When you're on a walk with your dog and they stop to take a dump, you may notice that your fluffy friend is staring at you as they poop. They do this because they're in a defenseless position and they're trusting you to keep them safe. There are more public libraries in the US than McDonald's. After the horrific events of 9/11, a small Kenyan tribe known as the Maasai people gave 14 cows to the US in their support. The man who played Mickey Mouse ended up marrying the woman who played Minnie Mouse, meaning that true love actually exists.
Do you know what the odds of that are? That's like a once in a lifetime, I guess, character, bro. Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and they both ended up together. Everything had to line up for that to happen, man. Crazy to think about.
Testophobia, megalophobia. This is unbelievable, but a teenager who disappeared 27 years ago at the age of 17 has just been found alive less than 200 meters away from his family's home in his neighbor's cellar. And how they finally found him after all of these years is even crazier. Omar went missing in 1998 on his way to vocational school. His family started to assume that he'd either been kidnapped or died during the civil war which was happening at the time in Algeria. Then, 27 years later, an argument breaks out between two brothers about an inheritance. One of them gets so angry that he not only starts ranting about it on social media, but he also calls the public prosecutor's office and says, "You remember that teenager that went missing about 30 years ago? Well, yeah. He's in my brother's house in the basement." When Omar's family hear about this, they say, "Hold up, that guy's brother lives down the road from us." So they decide to storm into his house, and to their horror, they find their now 45-year-old Omar in a hole in the ground in a sheep pen underneath stacks of hay. Now, because this has just happened, no one knows yet fully why Omar couldn't call for help for so long. But the Algerian media report, and this is not a joke, that he was under a spell cast on him by his captor. Take that with a pinch of salt, maybe. But depending on what investigators find out, this now may be among the world's longest running kidnapping cases. And the most tragic part is that Omar's mother died in 2013 without ever knowing the truth about what happened to her son.
Let's see if you have morophobia. I'm going to show you 5 photos. If you feel too uncomfortable to make it to the 5th photo, then you could have morophobia. So let's go. Number 1. And how about this?
Okay.
Feeling uncomfortable yet? Nearly there. Last one. If those photos made you feel uneasy, then you could have morophobia, which is the fear of mice and rats. Follow now to see if you can make it through the next phobia test.
So all of us have seen this robber emoji, right? You must have seen it at least one time, or used it at least one time. Maybe it looked something a little different. Maybe it looked something like this. Or maybe something like this. But you see, this emoji never existed. Millions of people swear that they have seen this emoji before. This topic caused so much fuss online that Apple themselves spoke up and they claimed that they never had this emoji before. Maybe the conspiracy theories about the Mandela effect aren't conspiracy theories after all. There have been people that tested this theory. They had iPads, the oldest models, the ones that run on iOS 5. The robber emoji was never there. But the question is, where the hell did we see this before?
I'm gonna have to call a cap on that one. I remember seeing a robber emoji on my phone before. Unless I'm tripping, bro, but I'm pretty sure they had. I don't know if they took it off of the update or, like they said, that Mandela effect. It's catching up to us, man. Do y'all have the marble emoji? Curious. I call a cop on that one. Apple must have just took it off. They're trying to play with our minds.
Children who went missing and still haven't been found. Sabrina Eisenberger, 5 months, missing since 1997. Alicia Navrowich, 14, missing since 2019. William Tyrelage, 3, missing since 2014.
That's so scary, man, that these kids are still missing to this day.
Johnny Gorsuch, 12, missing since 1982. Timothy Pitzenich, 6, missing since 2011. Carly Gusage, 16, missing since 2018.
This happened on Monday in Tijuana, Mexico. An American tourist went to an exchange house. These are places where you exchange US dollars for Mexican pesos. He exchanged $2,000. Once the transaction was done, he left the facility, and then he drove to this restaurant to have lunch with his family. A group of men entered the restaurant and asked him for the exact amount of $2,000 in Mexican pesos. He handed them some money, but not all $2,000 worth of Mexican pesos. They asked for the exact amount of 2,000 Mexican pesos. That's because these criminals are tipped off by the exchange house employees. After you go to these exchange houses, these employees tipped off criminals, and then they follow you to wherever you go and rob you. So when he refused to hand them exactly the $2,000, they grabbed one of the children that they had in the table and threatened to harm the child unless he handed over the entire amount. I wish I could tell you that this is an isolated incident. Unfortunately, it happens all over Latin America. The same scenario happened to someone from Florida who went to Honduras, and they followed him, and in this case, they shot him dead. After he went to the exchange house, they followed him in a red truck, and they shot him to death. He was a Honduran man living in Florida. When you go visit Mexico or any country in Latin America, you need to understand that everyone is involved in these crimes. When you go to a bank, the bank teller is involved with criminal activities. This man was lucky. They pistol whipped him after he handed over the entire amount, and then they went away. The best thing you can do as a tourist, carry credit cards and don't go to money institutions.
On the afternoon.
Hey, man. She just gave me a heads up when I travel, man. Is there like any other, I guess, institution where you could just, I guess, try to transfer the money and get it before you go into the country? Because she put me on game. I would not be doing that. But she said everybody involved, that won't be happening to me. No.
Of October 11th, 2016, a middle-aged man named Carlos Herrera Sr. entered the visitation area of a prison in Venezuela. And right in front of one was one table where there was this bedraggled-looking prisoner who he was there to meet, the inmate. He really looked terrible. I mean, his cheekbones were sticking out, he was sort of emaciated, he was bloodied and bruised, he had bandages on his arm. And also, over the past month, this prison had been on lockdown because a gang inside the prison had risen up and overpowered the guards and completely taken over for this entire month. And just to be clear, I mean, during this month, people died as a result of this takeover. And Juan knew all this, not only because this riot was all over the news while it was going on, but also because his own son, Juan Jr., was serving time in this prison for robbery. However, Juan Sr. was not coming to visit his son right now. Instead, he was coming to visit a different prisoner, because during this riot, Juan Jr. had just disappeared. And so Juan sat down at this table with this prisoner, and after the two of them introduced themselves, very quickly Juan Sr. said, "Please tell me what happened to my son, where is he?" But this prisoner he was talking to didn't immediately get into sort of a clear story about Juan Jr. This guy began talking about a totally separate prisoner, a man named Doranhel Vargas. Vargas was notorious across Venezuela for a series of brutal murders he committed that ultimately put him in this prison. And during this recent riot at this prison, it was Vargas and his gang that rose up and took over. And so even though he was terrorizing people and brutalizing people and was very much responsible for the deaths of multiple inmates, he also at the same time did have to make sure that the people he was in charge of, albeit illegally, had enough food, they had enough supplies, and this prisoner told Juan Sr. that if anybody got in the way of Vargas while he was in charge during this riot, they were basically beaten to within an inch of their lives, and again, in some cases, people were killed. And so Juan Sr. is like, "Oh my goodness, is that what happened to my son? Was he beaten like you by Vargas?" But at that point, the prisoner just shook his head and said no. And then he looked down and almost like couldn't make eye contact with Juan Sr. And he just said, "What happened to your son was much worse." The prisoner would tell Juan Sr. that at some point during the riot, his son, Juan Jr., was tapped by Vargas to help with something. And the thing he was tapped to help Vargas with was distributing food to the inmates. And so Junior was told, like, "Hey, you need to help us provide food to these inmates." So Junior basically agreed to do it, at which point he was informed exactly what role he was playing in finding food. Instead of going out and looking for this food, Junior was the food. Vargas and his gang cornered Junior, beat him to death, butchered his body, and then literally fed him to the inmates. That's what happened to Juan.
If your kid came to you and told you that every night a little girl with a scary face comes to the window and begs you to go outside and to play with her. This mom's daughter started mentioning a creepy little girl outside of her window. At first, she didn't know that much about it, but then as more details started to come out, things got really weird. Her daughter came to her one night and she said, "Mommy, the little girl with the really scary face is back. She's telling me I have to come outside, but I know I'm not allowed." This is absolute nightmare fuel, but it gets even worse. The little girl starts banging on the window at night, saying, "You have to come outside right now. Don't tell your mommy, just come out." And at this point, the mom is really freaked out, but she has to act fast. So she tells her daughter, next time she comes, tell her to go away. Tell her you never want to see her again. And so a week later, she checks in. She's like, "Hey, whatever happened to that little girl?" And her daughter just like really casually goes, "Oh, I told her to go away and to never come back. And she told me that when someone says that, she has to listen. So she left." No, because what do you mean she has to listen? So was she a ghost? Was she a demon? Was she something else? Either way, I would be breaking my lease immediately. Come over here for longer freaky videos.
This family vanished inside their own home. This is the disturbing disappearance of the Sanchez family. In the hills of Oaxaca, Mexico, there's a house no one dares to enter. The Sanchez family had vanished overnight. No bodies, no trace of mom and dad, no nothing. When police entered the home, they found dinner still hot on the table, the stove was on, but there wasn't any sign of the family. All the family's shoes were actually in the living room. However, they did find some disturbing writing in red letters. It said, "Nos llevó el mismo el que se llevó a los del rancho," meaning the same ones that took the people from the ranch took us as well. People believe that the father had discovered bones wrapped in cloth beneath the surface of the house during some home renovations. After that night, the dogs would howl non-stop, the air was thick, and the family had just disappeared. The case was completely closed. No leads, no clues, no nothing. Just pure silence. Some people say that if you pass by at night, you can hear children crying and laughing. And the Sanchez family was never found.
So they just dropped off the face of the earth. Father said he found bones dropped under the house and he still moved there. Couldn't be me, man. That's a sign.
Terrifying truth of the rat children of Pakistan. Outside the Shah Dola shrine in the Punjabi city of Gujarat, dozens of young children with deformed heads are seen begging. These children have distinctive shrunken heads and learning disabilities. Although this can be due to a genetic condition called microcephaly, this is not genetic. These children have been subjected to artificial microcephaly, where iron bands were placed on their skull. Prevents the normal growth of the skull and brain. Believed to be over 10,000 rat children in Pakistan, controlled by a mafia of beggars all over the country.
So people are willing to do that to children, man, just to get some money.
Not so fun facts to completely ruin your day. Tarantulas are able to swim. The global rate for people washing their hands after using the restroom is just under 20%. It's very common for people to have the urge to poop just before having a heart attack. People have different smells depending on if they're awake or asleep.
When you finish this video, you're going to Google two words. In 2014, two Dutch college students were staying in Panama when they decided to take their host family's dog out for a walk. The dog returned, but the girls didn't. After 10 weeks without any leads, a local woman turned in a blue backpack that contained the girls' cell phones and their camera. Using their call log, they were able to determine that the girls would attempt to reach emergency services 77 times, all unsuccessful, starting just hours into their trip. It was also determined that 5 days after those 77 calls, somebody tried unsuccessfully several times to unlock the girls' phones. But the most distressing thing is what was found on the camera. The first set was taken on the day they left and they were totally normal. The second set was taken in the middle of the night over a week after they had left, and it showed all their belongings neatly laid out on a rock, and it showed one of the girls who appeared to be hurt. They found their remains spread out around the area where the backpack was found, and some of their bones appeared to have been bleached. There is still no official cause of death or explanation as to what happened.
Chris crime race.
Facts that will definitely make your skin crawl, part 2. There is more of a chance of you finding a dead body underneath your bed than actually finding it in the garbage. If you ever plug your nose during a sneeze, you can actually rupture a blood vessel in your neck or your brain and it'll cause you to bleed to death. The electric chair was actually invented by a dentist. If a black cat looks at you and runs, it usually means something is about to happen to you, usually being pretty bad.
Bad luck, bro. It's crazy, man. The fact with the sneezes, man. You know how many times I've been holding my sneezes in? We won't be doing that anymore, Seekers.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 22. In the 18th century, you could bring your cat or dog to the London Zoo and actually pay your admission by feeding it to the lions. Bus seats are specifically designed so you can't tell how dirty they really are. When an octopus reproduces, it removes its penis and throws it at the female so she can impregnate herself, and then he grows back another one. Oysters are actually alive when they're served. They don't die until you eat them. In Australia, there's a plant called the gimbi, which has such a severe sting that when horses brush up against it, they actually throw themselves off a cliff because they would rather die than experience the pain. Live chat support agents can see what you type before they send it so they can reply quicker. Spider rain, yes, you heard me right, is a real and naturally occurring phenomenon.
Does a photo like this make you feel uncomfortable? Or something like this? This phenomenon is known as the Uncanny Valley. Introduced by Masahiro Mori in the 1970s, the Uncanny Valley refers to a phenomenon where our brains can register that something is very close to human, but we're also aware that something's not quite right. It's the in-between, where we can process that something looks like a person, but it's not a person, and it causes feelings of distress. Believed to be an evolutionary mechanism, which is also not exclusive to just humans, the Uncanny Valley is where we perceive these things to be a threat or not of us, and it can cause feelings of panic. One of the most well-known modern examples of this was actually an early test screening of Shrek in 2000, where Fiona was rendered as very hyper-realistic. So realistic that it surpassed the threshold of comfort in cartoon and moved into the Uncanny Valley. The children actually became so panicked at this screening, they were reported to be crying at the movie anytime she came on the screen. The entire film had to be halted and she was re-rendered. I'm not sure if this was the actual earliest version of Fiona that made it to the screening, but to put this in context, the one that made it to worldwide theaters is right above. But I did happen to find this monster from some of the early test footage of Shrek. The Uncanny Valley is still a widely unstudied phenomenon, but it continues to become more and more pervasive in entertainment as well as our modern animation.
What do you guys think? Uncanny Valley. Those pictures, some of them got to me.
These are the most bone-chilling photos on the internet, part 2. This is the youngest girl to ever give birth. Her name is Lina Medina. She gave birth at just 5 years old. The authorities suspected that her father raped her, but due to lack of evidence, he was never convicted. To this day, nobody knows how the young girl got pregnant, and is still a great mystery. This photograph looks like a normal photo, right? But it's not. The woman in this photo is actually dead, and the husband took the photo 2 days after she passed away. There's no word or evidence on what caused this woman's death, but many suspect that it was her own husband who killed her. This photo right here is captured on a boy's GoPro. Every night he would wake up to whispering and the feeling of somebody touching him. So he decided to wear a GoPro before bed one night. And this is what he saw on it in the morning. It appears to be a ghostly woman just staring and screaming into the camera. The boy showed the footage to his mother, and the next day they immediately moved out of the house.
That mom said, I'm out, deuces.
The terrifying truth of the rat children of Pakistan. Outside the Shahdola shrine in the Punjabi city of Gujarat, dozens of young children with deformed heads are seen begging. These children have distinctive shrunken heads and learning disabilities. Although this can be due to a genetic condition called microcephaly, this is not genetic. These children have been subjected to artificial microcephaly, where iron bands were placed on their skull, prevents the normal growth of the skull and brain. Believed to be over 10,000 rat children in Pakistan, controlled by a mafia of beggars all over the country.
Just for some money. That's a shame.
Be careful when looking at old pictures. You might see the man with the upside down face in one. Click the plus, drop a like, tag a friend, save yourself. The upside down man is one of the meanest and the scariest monsters alive. He personally feeds off of death and fear, so be careful. Behind me, as you see him in this tragic car accident. Supposedly this picture is from the 1960s, and this is when he started to appear. He himself cannot make the events tragic, but he can make them 10 times worse. By making simple arguments turn violent. My question to you guys is, have you looked at old pictures?
This is part 2 on what happened to Jalen Candelario. When police arrived at the house, they found Jalen in a shocking condition. She was lying in a urine and feces soiled playpen. She had sunken and dry eyes. She had dry and cracked lips, and she also had fecal matter inside her mouth and underneath her fingernails. Surprisingly, however, Jalen's clothes were completely clean, which indicated to police that Crystal had tried to clean her up to mask what she had done. Despite doing that, nothing would be able to mask the horrific state that Jalen was found in. During her interview with police, Crystal said that Jalen had been sick all week long, and that when she woke up that day, she discovered that Jalen was unresponsive and that she realized that her daughter looked dehydrated, which then prompted her to call 911 right away, which, as we know, was a complete lie because she was on vacation that entire week. Suspicious of her story, the police took her to the homicide unit for further questioning. In the second interview, she said that she did actually leave earlier that week to go work as an Uber driver in Detroit. Police were like, okay, why did you have to go be an Uber driver in Detroit? And she was like, oh, well, my friend lived there, so I wanted to go visit my friend and also work at the same time. So she admitted to leaving to Michigan, but never said anything about Puerto Rico. Nothing Crystal was telling the police made any sense, so they decided to further investigate, and that's when they discovered that she actually left to Puerto Rico for 10 days. With this, Crystal was arrested, and then on February 22nd, 2024, she pled guilty to aggravated murder and endangering children as part of a plea deal. During her sentencing, the defense team tried to make it seem like this was an act of insanity. They claimed that she was suffering from mental health issues and that she just wasn't thinking straight. The prosecution immediately tore down this narrative. They were like, no, she was sane enough to buy a plane ticket, to go through security at the airport, to get on the plane, get to the hotel, take pictures, edit the photos, post them on Facebook, write captions. Like, she was clearly sane during this time. Jalen's cause of death was also revealed during this time, and it revealed that Jalen died to starvation and severe dehydration. The medical examiner stated that Jalen had actually tried to eat her own in order to survive. Now, before hearing her sentence, Crystal expressed how sorry she was, how she made a big mistake, but that she knows that God and her daughter have forgiven her. She said that she was dealing with a lot of mental health issues at this time and that she hopes to reunite with Jalen one day. In the end, Crystal was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge said that Crystal defied one of the most basic human responsibilities and committed the ultimate act of betrayal against her daughter. What Crystal did is just truly evil, and the fact that she says that she knows Jalen forgives her is just insane. My thoughts and prayers go out to the family. This is just so upsetting, and I just truly hope that Jalen is resting in peace.
That was a crazy case, man. Went to Mexico, just left her. And Puerto Rico, I mean. You know, that's cap, because the world ain't ended.
Today I googled which country has produced the most serial killers. And honestly, number 1 is insane. Right, in at number 5 is Italy. They have produced 97 serial killers. Finally getting mentioned in one of my lists, I see you comment section, is Canada at number 4 with 106. That's a staggering 0.29 per 100,000 people. Now number 3 is an unfortunate regular on all of my lists, South Africa with 117 murderous individuals. The runner-up is England with 166, with the most notable being the infamous Angel Maker. She killed almost 400 babies in the 19th century. I told you number 1 was insane, and I didn't lie because USA obliterates this list. They have a staggering 3,204 known serial killers, which is approximately 19 times more than the second highest. That means almost 1 in every 100,000 people is a serial killer in the US.
That's a shame, bro. We should be ashamed.
This has to be one of the creepiest mugshots I've ever seen, and the story behind it is pretty disturbing. This is the man in the mugshot, Christopher Queen. At the time of his arrest, he was 48 years old and living in Pennsylvania. So on election day in 2018, Christopher entered a polling center in Pennsylvania planning on casting a vote. But when he arrived to vote, he was told that he couldn't because he wasn't registered. Poll workers who were working that day even stated that they heard Christopher mention that he was getting paid $100 to come vote, which obviously was not true. But when Christopher arrived, like I said before, he wasn't registered to vote in Washington County, the county he was in. When the workers told him that he couldn't vote, they noticed that Christopher began to shake uncontrollably and became filled with some sort of a rage. He then made the verbal threat that he was going to come back and shoot up the place, and after that, he was quickly put into handcuffs. I don't know the full story behind why he chose to exhibit this expression in his mugshot, but they caught him before he could enact any sort of violence, and yeah, he was arrested. It's worth noting as well that in other news reports that surfaced after this threat was made, Christopher is seen smiling in the same type of manner. Luckily though, authorities were able to arrest Christopher and put him in custody that day before he could cause any violence.
This is a true horrifying story about the most dangerous game to play. And no, it is not the Ouija board. This game is called the Corners game. People sent me a podcast video of 2 guys explaining how it's done. I've heard of this game a while ago, but since people are talking about it now, I'd love to step in. I genuinely warn you from playing this game, because it is extremely dangerous whether it was done right or wrong, and it does involve summoning an evil presence. Even if I didn't explain to you guys how it's done, you guys are probably gonna Google it either ways. The Corners game is a summoning ritual. In Islam, it is equivalent to practicing black magic. You need 4 participants. No additional players are allowed in the room. A room with 4 corners. No more, no less. All the lights in the room must be switched off. All players must enter the room one by one, speaking their name out loud 3 times. One principal is appointed as the speaker. The speaker stays in the middle of the room, and the remaining 3 players must pick a corner each and face the wall. The door should be shut, and when everyone is inside, no one is allowed to speak. When everyone is in position, the speaker counts to 3, and on 3, all participants must rotate clockwise to the next corner. Now there are 4 other procedures that I don't wish to explain further. But throughout the game, remember, there's always one empty corner. Now people say that one of the principals may disappear, but one thing for sure, an entity in the shape of a figure will appear in one of the corners. There is an emergency procedure of calling your name backwards, but I don't know if that will avoid getting you injured. A group of guys from Japan have played this game. No one disappeared in thin air after the game was done. However, one of the players never seemed the same after playing this game. During their 3rd rotation, they saw a figure move in one of the empty corners. The figure is a jinn, and jinns feed off from empty corners. That is what we know of them in Islam. In households, jinns camp in corners, ceilings, or even toilets. The player that is in most fear will be possessed. And the player that was possessed from playing this game passed away a couple of years later. They were all young men in their late 20s. Sometimes dangerous rituals are commercially sold as games, such as the Ouija board. But they are just dangerous portals. You are literally creating a portal from the jinn world to your own room by playing such games. I didn't even explain how the game is done. If you Google the rest of the procedures, that's your responsibility. Stay away.
Nah, I ain't Googling that. I'll always take his word for it. Like I said, Secret, you don't mess with the Ouija board, you don't mess with none of those games, bro. I do not need that energy in my life. Simple as that.
Do not read this poem out loud unless you want to be cursed. Tomino's Hell is a poem that was written in 1919 and is cursed. This poem talks about Tomino and all the horrible stuff he endured. His parents were very strict with him and locked him in a cellar without any food as a form of punishment. As he's in that dark cellar all alone with no food, he ends up passing away. Because of that, Tomino's spirit is said to haunt this poem. You must never read this poem out loud or you will feel the same feelings as Tomino, extreme hopelessness and despair. Aside from that, you can experience illnesses, accidents, or even death. In 1974, a movie was produced to be based off of this poem. Once the movie came out, the director ended up passing away 2 years later, even though he was pretty healthy. There's another instance with this girl who was in college and she was dared by her friends to read the poem out loud and she unexpectedly died a week later. Could this all just be a coincidence or is this poem actually cursed? If you really want to read this poem, you can read it in your head and be safe, unless you're brave enough to read it out loud. But don't say I didn't warn you.
Not me.
Stephen Stearns, the man accused of killing Madeline Soto, told his dad in a jailhouse phone call that he was surprised by the murder charge. A phone call between Stearns and his parents from May was released, and in it, Stearns' dad asks him about the charges he is facing. He says he was not expecting the charges. When his father asked, "So you got blindsided by that?" referencing the murder charge, Stearns said, "Yeah, obviously, you know it's not true. You know I never would have wanted her gone for any reason. So, you know, premeditated first degree is kind of a gut punch," which is a very interesting way to say it. Not just saying like I never killed her, but saying wouldn't have wanted her gone. So not only getting the murder charge, but getting a premeditated first degree murder charge hurts even more. And then his father said, "Yeah, I wish there was a way that, you know, you and I can have a conversation. All of us could have a conversation to understand what's taking place, how this came about, how you were right here, because it would help us better understand the situation, because we're just rather lost for understanding how this all came about. I mean, we're just totally baffled." And they're kind of discussing the other things Stearns has been charged with, which includes 60 counts of charges related to child SA and CSAM. And Stearns said, "I didn't start it." And then his father said, "Didn't start it, but you participated in it," which is just as bad as not starting it. When the transcripts from this phone call were released, more documents were also released, and in those, the state attorney's office revealed that they have evidence that Stearns was essaying Madeline when she was just 8 years old. She was 13 at the time of the murder. For now, Stearns remains in custody and has been charged with 60 counts of child SA and CSAM and a first-degree murder.
This mother planned the murder of her sons for a week. On May 2nd, 2022, 38-year-old Trin Nguyen shot her 9-year-old and her 13-year-old son in their beds in their home in Pennsylvania. That day, police was called by Trin's neighbor. The man told police that Trin had approached him and handed him a box of photos and asked him to give the box to her ex-husband who he worked with. She then pointed a gun at his face and pulled the trigger twice. However, the gun did not fire. He then quickly disarmed Trin and she fled the area in her car. He then told police that Trin had 2 children, so they searched the home and found both boys in critical condition from gunshot wounds to their head. Later that day, police found Trin at a church parking lot in her car. Police found heroin and a note in Trin's car that was dated a week earlier stating what to do with her and her son's ashes. They also noticed that Trin tried to end her life by consuming large amounts of narcotics. TJ and Nelson were on life support until they passed away the following Friday. Investigators still haven't found a motive for the shooting, but investigators did discover documents showing that Trin was going to be evicted from her home that was owned by her ex-sister-in-law, and she owed about $11,000 in rent.
Oh, then, that's because she's about to get kicked out. Crazy world we living in. Just spinning around.
His life was taken after accidentally entering the wrong home. On August 26th of this year, just before 2 a.m., officers were sent to a home on South Holly Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Those officers were called for a suspected home burglary. As officers were responding, the emergency call was then upgraded to a shots fired call. The officers found a victim on the front porch deceased with a gunshot wound to his upper body. The victim was identified as 20-year-old Nicholas Anthony Donofrio.
Nicholas actually lived on the same street where the shooting happened, and he just accidentally entered the wrong home when he was shot. The police said that the shooter was a man who lived at the home, but they were not going to release his name since he was not going to be charged in this case. Nicholas had graduated high school in 2021 in Madison, Connecticut. The shooting came in less than 72 hours after the university's fall semester classes had just begun.
What is the craziest thing that someone's confessed to on their deathbed? Well, a deathbed confession made this year solved a 20-year-old cold case. And this is coming from the Heart Starts Pounding podcast episode that's all about cold cases that were solved this year. So this year in West Virginia, a man named Larry Webb was dying. And before he died, he called a nurse over and said he needed to get it off his chest that he killed a woman and her daughter back in 2000. It turns out that back then, a woman named Susan Carter and her 10-year-old daughter Alex were living with Larry while Susan was in a custody battle with Alex's father. And one day they just disappeared, but because they were together when they disappeared, police assumed that Susan just ran away with her daughter. But Larry confirmed that that's not what happened. The story he gave on his deathbed is that one day he came home to see that Susan was stealing money from him, and so he shot her. And then panicking, he wanted to get rid of all the witnesses, and that included Alex, her daughter. And to me, the craziest thing in all of this is that Larry had really bad dementia, so when he gave this confession, they weren't really convinced that it was true. But the day after he died, both of their remains were found in his backyard. If you want to hear more on that story and other cold cases that were solved this year, check out the Cold Cases That Were Solved This Year episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the worst of the worst videos on the internet explained, and today we're talking about the Pitbull video. The video that I'm about to explain is extremely graphic, and I don't recommend searching for it. This is a cartel execution, and the video begins with the victim lying on his back on the ground, and two men are holding his legs open. He's being restrained. And in total, there are 5 cartel members, 1 victim, and also 2 pit bull dogs. Apparently, this is the victim's punishment for allegedly doing something with a kid or to a kid. The victim is naked, and at the start of the video, the dog has done most of the work. The dog already ripped the man's privates off, and it's just a bloody mess. The dog continues to rip pieces of flesh off where the victim's privates used to be, and the victim is being held down, and he is also being gagged so he can't scream. But sometimes the gag came loose, and at that point you can hear the man scream in absolute pain. The victim was even talking, but I couldn't translate it, but that means he was completely conscious during this, which I can't even imagine the pain. As a man, this might be one of the worst videos out there. Funky Town is bad, Ghost Rider is bad, but as a man, I can't imagine anything more painful than a pit bull ripping your junk off while you're still alive. Not many people mention this video with the other disturbing ones, but it's definitely up there. There's not any information about the victim after the video. I don't know if he died, but it's safe to assume he did. He lost a lot of blood, and if a dog eats your privates, you will most likely get an infection and die from it. All in all, this video is very graphic, very real, and very disturbing. Please do yourself a favor and never go searching for this video, especially if you're a man.
Standards from around the world that you probably didn't know about. Women from the Mercy tribe in Ethiopia removed their 4 lower front teeth and cut a hole in their bottom lip. Then they put in a plug to stretch their lips until they can insert a full-sized lip plate. This can take many months to do, but the lip plates are symbols of beauty and identity, and they're often worn by unmarried women in hopes of seeming more feminine and finding a rich husband. These plates are changed regularly and each time increasing in size, and this tradition has existed for over 10,000 years. Follow if you want to see more.
That's insane to think about. Austria.
The most disgusting things actors had to do for a role.
Okay.
Do you guys remember this scene in Harry Potter when all the kids gathered for a feast with all this delicious food? Well, every time they filmed the scene, they couldn't replace the food, so it started to rot and smell terrible. And the actors said it got so bad they could smell the stench before even walking on set. In Game of Thrones, Castle Black looked super disgusting on screen and was just as disgusting in real life. The set decorators hung raw meat from the ceilings, had real pigs wandering around, and didn't clean up for weeks at a time, which made the actors have an easy time pretending to be miserable and cold because it actually was. For the Hunger Games, Jennifer Lawrence took acting to the extreme and actually ate a raw fish in order to get into the skin of her character. She said the crew told her it would taste like sushi. Hint, it did not. She said it tasted as bad as it smells and that she's never doing that again.
They lie, bro.
Let's see if you have thalassophobia, part 3. I'm going to show you 5 photos. If you feel too uncomfortable to make it to the 5th photo, then you could have thalassophobia. Number 1. How about this? Feeling uncomfortable yet?
Still good.
Nearly there. Last one. Hit follow to see if you can make it to the next phobia test.
I made it all the way to the end. I don't think I have that phobia. They all getting freaking extinct, but then reintroduced.
Your brain's storage capacity is around 2.5 million gigabytes. Smell is the sense most closely linked to memory. Your short-term memory can only handle about 7 thoughts at once. You forget 50% of new information within an hour. And this fact really annoyed me, so I tried to come up with a solution and stumbled across Plurk. It's an AI-based device that can transcribe any audio recording to text in seconds. Luckily, it's simple, so when I need to remember something, I just start with the one-press voice recording on the Plurk device. And once complete, I just click transcribe. And boom, it's done. I have the whole transcription ready for use, and it's perfect. Or I can just select to create a summary and choose the style I'm looking for. For example, to find the most important points in a long meeting or create an audio report of that file. So I'm never going to forget something important ever again as long as I have this device with me. You can get it to link in bio.
Nice new info. Helpful. That kind of makes sense about the short-term memory, because I know I'll be forgetting stuff that I know I'm supposed to know. It always gets to me, man.
This is the Devil's Castle, and it's one of the scariest places on Earth. It's located in a small town in Mexico. Its actual name is Castillo del Diablo, and it was built by a painting contractor named Tony Wells. He spent almost $4 million on the castle, and it's become a worldwide attraction. In the castle, you can find coffins, creepy mannequins, and gargoyles. Wells has a collection of over 800 swords and knives, and about 350 beautiful antique mirrors. Often, Satan worshippers leave him presents, even though Tony does not believe in Satan. Would you dare spend a night in this place?
That's a hell no. I'm new. I stay away from that type of energy, man. But he actually pulled $4 million into that. That's a lot of money, bro. Just to build something like that. That's we stay away from that energy, seekers.
Crazy things happening in the world right now. New York City is now giving rats birth control to stop them from reproducing. This restaurant sued this customer for leaving a $3,000 tip for his waitress. Pablo Escobar's abandoned hippos are still causing problems in the Colombian jungle. A motel in Kentucky was ordered to pay $2 million after one of their guests passed away in a 150-degree shower. Karen was the most popular baby name 60 years ago, and now it is nearly extinct. Florida police are telling people to stop taking selfies with a depressed black bear. EasyJet is apologizing after leaving 3 passengers with disabilities on the runway. A Japanese political candidate was stripping on national TV and asking viewers if they thought she was sexy. A game developer was demanding naked sauna sessions with his employees. 5 fishermen in Sri Lanka passed away after drinking water from a bottle they found in the ocean.
These are the scariest
I was
serial
supposed to
killers
do
in
that.
each state, part 1. Up first is Nanny Doss from Alabama, also known as the Giggling Granny. She married 5 times and murdered 4 of her husbands, and the only one that survived was her first husband. She also poisoned 11 of her family members. Her first 2 victims were her children, who allegedly died from food poisoning. She got the nickname the Giggling Granny because she would always laugh at the crimes she committed. She killed 11 people and is definitely the scariest serial killer from Alabama.
She was laughing? No remorse, man. Watch out for those type of people.
This is the world's first passenger plane that doesn't have a pilot because it's being flown by AI. What could go wrong? The concept was revealed at the National Business Aviation Association event in Orlando, Florida. And the idea is to create a fully autonomous passenger jet that has similar benefits to self-driving cars. They believe AI could reduce human error, which is the leading cause of accidents, making air travel safer than ever. Because there would be no need for pilots, it could reduce costs. It could improve efficiency and reduce delays because planes could fly 24/7 without needing to rest for crew. And more personalized, on-demand flight options could emerge, like Uber for the skies. But then again, you would have to put your complete trust in AI 40,000 feet in the sky. So the question is, should this be made or scrapped immediately? Here are 3 options.
I'm gonna go with scrap, bro, because with AI, like, you never know. Somebody could hack and take over that plane, or it can glitch, man. You know, AI is still not perfect, man. And you putting your life at the hands of technology at 40,000, like I said, feet in the air. That's no, man. They need to scrap that.
Optical illusions, which I guarantee will make your brain hurt. First one, make that your phone background, I dare you. Wait, I've got another one for you. Second one, that makes me feel a bit sick. Let's see the last one. Now go and give your eyes a rest.
Were they moving for you guys? They wasn't moving for me though, so. But I know those are probably some crazy optical illusions. Let's edit, man. We call them out. Like I said, if you guys give me edits, I need you guys to help me. Call them out too.
This woman did you-know-what with 919 men in one single day. Lisa Sparks set this record back in 2004 at the annual World Championships in Poland. She was competing against 2 other women, one of which was the current record holder who did you-know-what with 759 people in one day.
What the
But the craziest part is Lisa set this record in only 12 hours, meaning she only spent 45 seconds with each man.
No! How is something like that even possible? She beat it in 12 hours. What happened to Shane, bro? That's insane. He's actually a world record for that? I'm scared to even look up who has the current record, bro. I don't think I want to know.
Interesting people you've never heard of. This man from Australia survived a wildfire by scuba diving in his pool while the wildfire was burning all around him. This man in his 40s fathered somewhere between 550 to 600 children. Because of this, he was court-ordered to stop donating his sperm. This man has fathered over 100 kids but has not been paid for it, and even pays child support for some of them. A man in Louisiana who was pulled over by a police officer for drunkenly riding on a horse gave the excuse that the horse knows the way home. The sheriff ended up not giving him a DUI. This Englishman bought this island 60 years ago, moved to it, and never returned. This is what he looks like now after planting over 16,000 trees, attracting a bunch of different species of animals, and even making it a national park. This guy holds the world record for reciting pi to 22,514 digits in just under 5 hours, and he knows 11 languages.
Damn, he Jimmy Neutron.
Water slide in the whole world. This is known as the Leap of Faith. It's one of the most beautiful constructed slides in the entire world. But despite its beauty, it's actually known to be one of the most dangerous water slides. This slide consists of a 60-foot drop and was created back in 1998. But if that's not scary enough, it actually gets crazier. After the 60-foot drop, the riders are then sent through a lagoon of sharks. They're kept inside of the tube while the sharks are swimming around them. He was 2 years old when he survived 4th-degree burns.
The candle fell. The fire spread quick and then into a blanket. And then it all caught on fire.
Zaid Garcia was only a toddler when his mother put him to bed and a candle fell on his blankets, causing his entire bed to set on fire. He was rushed from Mexico to San Antonio for treatment, where he had multiple surgeries, and doctors thought that he wasn't going to make it. But he did. 80% of Zaid's body was burnt, and he lost both of his hands and 5 toes. His eyes were also severely burned, so doctors covered his eyes with his skin so it can help them heal.
Zaid said that he's able to only see shadows and light, but hopes to regain his vision one day and remove the skin from his eyes. He's now 19 years old, and his story is a miracle since most people don't survive third-degree burns. But what shocks me the most is despite everything Zaid has been through, he's still so positive and optimistic.
When you share your story with somebody, how do you hope they react?
Well, I know it'll make them sad, but I hope that it gets to their heart, and I hope it gives them hope and faith on themselves too. I know they might feel bad for me and everything, but I hope they think, well, if he did it, I could do it too.
Deadliest computer viruses in the world, part 3. This is the infamous escape virus, and you'll see exactly why it's called that. So we're going to open it up here and then click run, and then run again. Allow this publisher to make changes, yes. This malware is no joke. Continue. Hell yeah. Alright, now let me show you what happens. First thing, the computer restarts itself. A classic virus move. Boots back up and we have stage 1. Background and theme change to this red-looking vibe. Stage 2, Windows loads with a bunch of spam user accounts, all with a bunch of weird characters, each password protected. And the main admin account is called No Escape. At this point, most keys on your keyboard would be disabled. Stage 3, admin password is set to death, all lowercase, so we punch that in to log on. Stage 4, all files on your computer are deleted and your desktop is filled with these junk files, all with those same strange characters. Stage 5, your mouse buttons are swapped, so left click is right and right is left. If you open up any of these files in Notepad, it just says this: your computer is mine. You cannot get rid of this malware. Stage 6, you can't really do anything with your computer anymore, and on September 18th, it will delete the Windows bootloader, meaning that you can't even turn it on. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in trying this out, and I'll send you that download link.
Who wants to fry their computer intentionally? That's a hell no for me. You gotta be careful with those links you click on, man. They be trying to get you. So far, thankfully, I've avoided all of those.
You will not believe how this woman's stalker found her. In 2019, police in Tokyo arrested a 26-year-old man by the name of Fubiki Sato, who was suspected of following home a young female pop star and whom he later moved on to assault and molest as she was walking into her apartment complex. But how did he find out exactly where she was? Well, that's the scary part. It was said that Sato screenshotted one of the girl's social media posts in which he zoomed into her eyes, and in her eyes you could see the reflection of a very famous landmark, and that's how he found her location. He then proceeded to use Google Street View, where he would find the exact coordinates of the landmark that was reflected in the girl's eye. This is when he would move on to this location and commit the horrific acts on this young woman. So guys, this is why it's very important to be careful about what you post on social media, because he found her through a reflection in her eyes. Who's to say it couldn't happen to you?
Top 4 most
horrifying
places in the ocean. 1. Hot Tub of Despair, Gulf of Mexico. This is 3,300 feet below the surface of the ocean. It is a very real, very deadly version of Goo Lagoon, where it killed Mr. Krabs and most of the fish in that show as well, because this is a really toxic mix of super salty water, methane, and hydrogen sulfide that basically kills any sort of organism that goes near it. To is Sirena Deep. This is the 3rd deepest part of our ocean, and it's absolutely horrifying for a lot of reasons. First of all, we have no clue what lives down there, but basically it looks something like this, completely dark and devoid of life with crushing pressure and freezing cold water, and it's really scary and empty and dark. 3. The East Siberian Sea. It's basically filled with ticking time bombs of giant methane pockets that may or may not explode in the near future because of global warming, the fact they're under a bunch of ice, and when they do explode, it'll release a lot of damaging, chemicals, and it also will make the water around them boil and probably kill anything that's in that water with it. 4. The Ring of Fire, or the outline of the entire Pacific Ocean. This is a very large area of seismic and volcanic activity. Among other things, this is also where the largest mountains and volcanoes are on our planet, which is kind of horrifying.
Gotta take care of our planet, bro, or it's gonna erupt.
This woman shocked everyone at this carnival game because in order to win, you have to hang on to the bar for 2 minutes, which doesn't seem like a long time. But if you've ever tried this, you'll understand just how difficult this simple task is. But what the employees didn't know is that she's actually a rock climber, so this wouldn't even be a challenge for her. And as the time winded down, with no signs of struggle to be seen, she eventually got down to the final seconds, out with a small crowd forming in order to witness what would happen. And just watch what she does when the timer ends.
What the heck? That is hard. That's impressive. Could you guys do a Seekers? 2 minutes?
Do you think you could beat this game?
Whatever it was that really happened in the Hotel President was one of the most disturbing mysteries in American history. This is January 2nd, 1935, when the Hotel President in Kansas City, Missouri got a very strange visitor. This very unusual young man who checked in under the name of Roland T. Owen. He was eventually going to be placed in room 1046, and over a period of days, the maid staff just kind of routinely entered the room because it was always dark in there, so they assumed nobody was in there. Every time they walked in, what they would actually find was Roland T. Owen sitting on the bed in a suit in complete darkness, doing nothing. The most disturbing of all was really what took place on January 4th. Hotel staff had entered the room because of a disconnected phone line, and when they got in there, Roland T. Owen was found on the ground, covered in blood, and he had been stabbed multiple times. Just before he died, they asked him, who did this to you? Which he just said, no one. Even more bizarre, an anonymous caller who was allegedly a woman called in and paid for his entire funeral. If you do want more to the story, I would go check it out right on the show.
Yeah, we gotta check that out, man. Like, what the hell? It sounds like a very deep mystery, man. Need to find that.
Breaking news, Bella Brave has been put into a medically induced coma, and they do not believe she is going to make it. Many of you may recognize her from being a star on this app. You may also know her as Bella Brave. Now, as of July 10th, her mother has posted that she has been medically induced in a coma. She said, quote, "They've told us they don't know if she'll survive this. I know she will. I know she has an army praying for her." Her mother shared that Bella had developed an infection in her lungs and also may have developed a form of bronchitis. Doctors say the type of bronchitis that she developed is, quote, irreversible and a chronic condition. It is also known as popcorn lung. On July 9th, her mother posted that although Bella was, quote, sitting up, she began to struggle. She went on to say, quote, she lost 4 pounds in one day, putting all her energy into breathing. Her CO2 started to increase, and she started to doze off and have delirium. She was alert enough to tell me she turned into a piece of bread, and she also knew that she was at the Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. She continued by saying they knew at that point they needed to sedate her and intubate her before she crashed. We left having them tell us they didn't know if she'll make it through the night, but she did. However, the following day, her mother said that she was placed into a medically induced coma. The best of the best were telling us it looked really bad. But I kept lifted stare, intensely listening until I heard what hope there was left that we could hang on to. She has also shared that Bella was put on a large dose of steroids. She said this is the one option they have left to help her lungs work again. Day 3 will give us more information on how soon we could see her lung function improve. She's stable, and that in itself is an improvement from now. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. Prayers for Bella, and I'll keep you guys updated. What do you guys think? Drop in the comments.
Prayers, man.
Scary Christmas Urban Legends, Part 1. Hopefully you're not eating right now, because this one's going to make you lose your appetite. So this is mincemeat pie. Apparently people actually like this and like to eat it during Christmas time. Legend goes that it was created in the 16th century as a way for humans to cook and eat other humans. You heard me correctly, humans were added to this dish. And apparently this rumor or legend is why mincemeat pies no longer have meat in them. At least most don't anymore. Delicious. Like and follow for more weird shit like this.
I've never had that before.
The way you see the world. This is a prediction of what the world is going to look like 250 million years from now. These are the CO2 emissions across the Indian subcontinent, with the lightest, whitest areas being the highest. This map shows all of the foreign military presence that is sitting in Africa right now. This map shows the most valuable Italian brands and where exactly they came from. If you draw a straight line between the northernmost point and southernmost point in the contiguous United States, along with the westernmost point to the easternmost point, the lines do not intersect. This map shows what the size of the Great Lakes would look like if it was in Europe. This map shows which state you can find the highest percentage of people with ancestry from every European country. This map shows where every popular sitcom took place. Every red dot on this map is a football pitch or a soccer field if you're from the United States. This map shows that in 1990, most of the United States had 15% or less obese adults in their state, where less than 30 years later, now almost every state has more than 25% obesity rates.
That's a shame.
Has finally been named the disappearance of Orangutan. If you've been following, you know Oregon was abducted She was a bit shy compared to the other kids, and so she'd just been sitting with her mom along the first baseline to watch the game. But apparently she was so excited when two kids came over and asked her if she wanted to go catch fireflies. She repeatedly asked her mom, and so Colleen gave in, even though it was getting dark. But she had no idea Billy Jack Lynx was also there, and allegedly parked right next to their car. Moreover, she said that when she saw her daughter for the last time, she was running up this hill and past the fences to that exact same parking area. Now, when the game ended that night around 10:30, all of the other kids came running back down to the field, but Morgan wasn't with them. Immediately, Colleen asked them where she had gone off to, and they told her that she had just sat down for a second to get the sand out of her shoes. So Colleen went up there and started looking around, but she couldn't find her anywhere. And by 11 p.m. that night, everyone was searching the ballpark, and eventually officers decided to take the area off as a crime scene. It turns out the kids who were with Morgan that night had seen something worth mentioning. There was a man with a scruffy beard who had come up to them, and they couldn't quite place it, but something about him and his red truck just didn't fit. Now with this, police asked everyone to send in their home footage from the games that night, and they found a truck that matched the one the kids were talking about. Nothing immediately came from this new lead, but then about 2 months later, there was another attempted abduction. It was determined that Billy Jack Lynx had tried to take an 11-year-old girl from a local Sonic, and he was driving what appeared to be the exact same truck. Now that same year, 95, the connection here was made, and Lynx was interviewed about Morgan's disappearance. His car was also sent off for testing, and they even found human blood, but from what I can tell, all of the initial evidence in this case was lost. Then in 2019, a new team finally came in to take over this case, and it was so disappointing because they could have had the technology now to match that blood to Morgan. So they started over trying to track down this truck 25 years later, and somehow after several different owners, they had found it. In 2020, investigators, quote, vacuumed various locations of the truck, and now they say they have a blonde hair that has to match Morgan or someone in her family. They also say this strongly suggests that Morgan was in Billy's vehicle the night she disappeared, and while he died in 2000, they also have an idea of where he took her after the abduction. They focused in on an area about 10 minutes away that's down by the river, where a group of kids actually saw his truck later that night, and what appeared to be a man holding someone down in the front seat. Tragically, it is believed that Morgan may have been taken with the floodwater that year. Today, she still remains missing. Investigators are trying to figure out everything they can about Billy's life, likely to see if he has any more victims.
You won't believe these jobs actually exist. Naming movies at Pixar. For this job, all you have to do is name Pixar's new movies, and you can get paid up to $700,000 to do this. And apparently, a woman that had this job got a $300,000 bonus for naming the movie Cars. Professional sleepers get paid up to $100,000 a year just to sleep. They do this for scientists to analyze their sleeping patterns or to test mattresses for hotels. An underwater hotel in the Florida Keys has an underwater pizza delivery man whose job is to deliver pizza to the hotel guests 21 feet below sea level. People completing surveys from their phones are now earning hundreds if not thousands a month. On the Mahola app, you can earn not only by taking surveys but even reaching certain levels on mobile games. Mahola pays a $1 welcome bonus and you can cash out at just $3. If you want to start doing this yourself, download Mahola on the App Store or Google Play.
Here are some crazy
Easy
things
money
happening
everywhere.
in the world right now. 5 guys were arrested for fighting at Five Guys. Amazon delivered a package to Mandy Moore's burnt down house after the wildfires in LA. KFC is moving their headquarters from Kentucky to Texas. The son of a billionaire rented out Asia's biggest nightclub with a DJ so that he could deal with his breakup. The company Igloo is recalling over 1 million coolers because a faulty handle has been amputating fingertips. A woman gave a psychic $50,000 to help her fall in love, and now she wants a refund. An opossum was hospitalized after eating an entire Costco cake. I get it. A Minnesota man tried to put out a Boy Scout cabin fire with beer. Now he's being charged with arson. Kid Rock walked off stage mid-show in Nashville because the crowd wouldn't clap. Please clap. A man was swallowed by a whale and lived. A tourist lost both hands after a shark bit them off while she was trying to take a selfie. A daycare worker put a 4-year-old in a trash can because he refused to take a nap. Changes in Earth's magnetic field are triggering sea turtles to dance. Police found $50,000 worth of stolen Pokemon cards in an Australian home. A dad was charged with assault for shoving 2 child referees at a hockey game. And that's it.
Here are some facts that can
insane.
one day save your life. If you ever see this tiny white spot on your bananas, watch out. This means there's a spider infestation, so make sure you throw those bananas out right away. And if you're ever out in the wilderness and have nothing to eat, dandelions are actually fully edible. If you ever take a picture with flash on and you notice a white dot on your pupil, you need to head to the doctor immediately because this could be a sign of disease. And if your drink ever smells like cinnamon, do not drink it. People actually use that as a tactic to cover up the smell of poison.
Whatever you do, do not look into her eyes.
Nothing's happening. I'm still good. No noticing the change of expression on her face. Oh, I see now when you look at her eyes, it changes bit by bit. She look like she going crazy. What the? Is this like an optical illusion? That's what I'm guessing. Yeah, that definitely was an optical illusion. Playing tricks on us. Crazy to think about how mind could just trick us like that.
The most evil kids ever, Part 1. At only 8 years old, Armajit Sada is the youngest known serial killer in the entire world. The young Indian boy was accused of murdering 3 babies.
Phase you can survive SCP-096 or the Shy Guy. The Shy Guy is a malicious humanoid entity currently being contained by the mysterious SCP Foundation in an undisclosed location somewhere around the globe. The first rule you'll want to follow if you want to avoid an encounter with this entity is to never look it directly in its face or at a photograph of its face, as this will immediately cause it to start hunting you down no matter where you are, with the intention of ending your life, and it won't stop until the job is done. If, for some reason, you can't avoid looking at SCP-096 in its face, the second rule will come into play. Run. Run very fast, and don't stop running. Ever. There are virtually 0 weapons that can damage this creature, so your best option is to buy yourself some time while the SCP Foundation works on a solution to containing it. Finally, you'll want to look for isolated and hard-to-reach places to hide in. This includes airplanes, islands, etc. Basically anything that will put a large amount of distance between you and the Shy Guy. Tag a friend if you're watching this alone, and follow for more.
No, dude, stay away from the Shy Guy, man.
Body warning signs you should never ignore. If you heard this ringing noise in your ear, that is a sign that you are lacking vitamin B12. If you're always thirsty and feel like you can't drink enough water, you may want to get checked for diabetes. It could be nothing but low insulin causing you to pee more, which then causes you to drink more water. If your hair is starting to get thin, this could be a sign your body not producing enough hemoglobin, so you should need to eat more foods that are rich in iron. If you're getting random bruises and you have no clue where they came from, this is a sign that you have an iron deficiency. So try to eat more foods with vitamin K and zinc-enriched foods. If a person always feels cold all the time, even in hot weather, that means the person has a thyroid problem and may need to see a doctor.
These are some extremely
unsettling
facts, and I found all. Anyways, I know hearing these cannot be easy, but that's why.
Damn, we didn't even get to hear those facts, man. I'll have to find those for you guys. So always stay up to date. You know what that is.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, part 17. This is YouTuber Sarah Funk, who is vlogging her trip to Cyprus's Red Lake. The suitcase in the water was actually discovered to contain the body of a 12-year-old girl who was murdered by a serial killer. At $1.5 million, this is one of the most valuable violins in the world. The initials WH stand for Wallace Hartley, who was the lead violinist aboard the Titanic.
This was the instrument he played the night the ship sank before Wallace himself died. The couple was staying at an underwater cabin at the Manta Resort. This photo shows Steven proposing to his girlfriend through the cabin window. She said yes, but when she waited for her fiancé to return, he never made it out of the water and drowned.
So
we
sad.
need to talk about pedophile symbols in children's movies and books for a second. So these are symbols that the FBI in the past has claimed that pedophiles use to communicate with each other. This is a known thing, and there are actually people who belong to these groups who have come out and stated that yes, these groups do align with these symbols. So take a good look, especially up here to the left. So these are some screenshots from the children's film Alina of Avalor. Do you notice any symbols right here on one of the characters? Well, some of the other symbols from that sheet are found on another one of the characters in the film. Then there's the movie The Mighty Ducks, where one of the characters' helmets not only has one of those symbols, it actually has both of them. Same character, same helmet. I mean, that's pretty strange, right? There's also the film The Flight of the Navigator, where you can clearly see this same symbol being used again and again throughout the film. And these same symbols can also be found on diapers, you can see them clearly right there, on CDs that are clearly produced for and marketed towards children, interactive books made for children like these, and they can even be observed as far back as in Pinocchio. So, what do you think? Is this all just one big coincidence? Are these commonly used symbols? Or are these symbols seen in children's films and media for a reason? I don't know, maybe it was an animator that had certain proclivities themselves that wanted to brag to people that would recognize this that they had gotten away with getting a job working near children. Or maybe it's all just a coincidence.
This is the reason
What do
why
you
you should
think?
never travel late night in the southern part of the United States. A group of bikers were going through these mountains when they were able to spot this creature. The creature was going side by side, alerting the bikers not to get any closer. Many people have claimed seeing skinwalkers through this little trail before, but the bikers decided to take this path anyways. Skinwalkers are extremely popular in the Navajo culture, and they can transform into different things like owls, wolves, and different creatures to travel late night. What a terrifying situation for these bikers.
Stay away from skinwalkers, you guys.
So you probably have questions. I may have answers. Anyway, this is the Bodo, aka the Amazon River Dolphin, aka a sentient hot dog that got left in a microwave of life too long. A flipper paralysis demon if I've ever seen one. See, now what had happened was, scientists studied these river pigs for over 200 hours, and there were 36 separate times where one decided to become a sentient sprinkler for apparently no reason. Questionable use of free will, and scientists hit a mental roadblock trying to figure out the why. Here's my guess. Fun fact, dolphins can recognize each other by using their version of names. It's pretty cool. They can also recognize each other by tasting urine, so they got that two-factor authentication going. That's not a joke. Scientists watch dolphins carefully listen to the sounds of whistles and consolidate that by sampling their south shower before giving them the how the heck are ya. Another thing is that nature's forgotten bubblegum isn't blind, but with the murky river water they live in, they might as well be. So senses like smell and taste carry the team. And the last thing is that male dolphins form lifelong alliances where they help each other get laid, and being on our smelly timing is how they prove their identity. It's not really that crazy. Animals like lions spray to mark their territory. Giraffes will taste bladder product to see if a female's ready. And porcupines will really gift a golden shower to let the lady know he's on timing. So that's my guess. Or they could just be playing, cause the way those males and alliances bond is something I can't talk about on here. Not so shameless plug, but nah, for real. Goblins is probably already gonna spank me for showing that video. So if you're curious, you wanna know what I'm talking about, there you go. The more you know.
Seemingly normal photos with disturbing backstories, part 1. This photo shows Apollo 1 astronauts praying as a joke, and not a single one of them returned back to Earth. This is a photo of a man smiling in the trenches during the war, but he wasn't smiling because he was happy. He was smiling due to shell shock and borderline insanity. This just looks like 3 girls taking a selfie, but the light in the background is actually a train which hits and ends all their lives just seconds later.
People, man, would try to do anything for a selfie.
3
Just a
facts
picture.
that can save your life, part 6. If you ever find yourself stranded on a beach somewhere, try and stay as dry and warm as possible, gathering supplies before it gets dark, to of course make a fire. People don't realize that as soon as the sun goes down, it gets extremely cold on those waterfronts, and you can more or less die of hypothermia actually pretty quickly. If you ever find yourself hiking in need of water, don't ever eat the snow. Eating the extremely cold snow while being extremely cold can actually give your body internal hypothermia, unaliving you actually pretty fast. If you're ever walking to your car and it's extremely dark outside, make sure you have your keys in your hand. If an intruder or someone comes near you to bother you, you can sound the alarm of your car, more or less scaring them off, or getting at least somebody else's attention. Like and follow for more.
Those facts. Write them down.
These are some facts that could save your life one day. If you've been stabbed or punctured by a sharp object, your immediate thought's probably going to be, I need to get this out of my body right now. But unfortunately, that's the last thing you want to do. When you get stabbed by an object, it actually is used as a plug to stop the bleeding from happening. And if you take it out, you're going to start pouring blood everywhere, you're going to lose more blood, and you'll die. This is a pretty simple one that I've talked about before, but if you ever are at the beach and you hear a roaring sound, the ground starts to shake, or you notice the water starting to recede from the shore very quickly and a lot farther than normal, run for your life to high ground. This is because these are all the telltale signs that a tsunami is headed directly for you. And yeah, you're just not going to make it out of that if you stay on the beach. And this is perhaps the most important one that I have. If you're ever traveling abroad and you're not in your home country, most places, especially over in Europe, you can use your phone and dial 112. This will automatically connect you to the nearest emergency service and they'll get you the help that you need. Also, even if you don't have phone service, you can dial 911 in America and it will still contact you through to a dispatcher. Look, I'm just trying to help you out over here today, alright? And that's why
112. Okay, so that's basically the 911 over in Europe. Putting that in my memory bank, man, when I travel one day, so thankful for that fact. We learn that every single time I watch the clips together with you guys, man. I always learn something new.
For the first time ever, a wild animal has been observed using a medicinal plant to treat a wound. So scientists just observed an orangutan in the wild doing something no other wild animal has ever been seen doing. You see, apparently this orangutan got into a little scuffle, and this scuffle caused the orangutan to get a wound below its eye. After getting this wound, scientists observed the orangutan chewing up a plant that is not normally part of its diet, and after chewing this plant, the orangutan would take the chewed paste and apply it to its wound below its eye. Now, the orangutan doing this was no random coincidence, because as it turns out, the plant that it was chewing did indeed have medicinal values. Now, because the orangutan decided to use this plant to treat its wound, the wound closed up after about a month, and the orangutan never got any kind of infection from the wound. Now that this has been observed in the wild, scientists are trying to figure something else out. They're trying to figure out if all orangutans know about these healing plants and are taught about the plants from other orangutans as they grow up, or if this is just some sort of animal instinct that the orangutans just automatically know when they're born.
Here's some facts though definitely.
Interesting, they
If you
evolving.
ever live alone and you hear footsteps upstairs your house while you're downstairs, they already know you're there. Most house intruders aren't random. They've already been watching you. If you ever hear movements upstairs while you're alone, their plan is already in motion. Leave your house as fast as you can and as quietly as you can, and only confront when trapped. If a stranger asks you, do you live alone? Always lie. Always reply to that question with, oh, I live with parents, or my roommate's home, or my boyfriend's coming home soon. This can immediately dissuade predators targeting solo victims. If you ever find a door ajar in your home and you didn't leave it that way, back away immediately. Intruders sometimes leave doors open, no matter how slightly they are, as a trap. Walking into that room, especially if that room has no form of escape like windows, makes you extremely vulnerable. Leave immediately and call the police, even if this means finding out there's no intruder in the process. And finally, if you're ever being chased, never run in a straight line. Run in a zigzag or any other pattern. Zigzagging can make it harder for a pursuer to predict their path, especially if they're armed or driving. As you continue running that way, always try to run in crowds or areas with light or noise. Stay safe.
Creepy. I've always wondered that, man. I've been seeing that. Like, have you ever seen that in movies or sometimes where, you know, person getting chased, or, you know, they getting, like I said, that person's arm, but they just run in a straight line? I'm thinking, I'm like, if you at least, like I said, zigzag, run in different directions, it makes them harder for you to hit them. So that always crossed my mind why people never did that. Maybe in this situation, man, you just not thinking.
Is home camera footage. In 2017, a mother in Billings, Montana woke up in the middle of the night to a notification on her phone. Her phone was synced to a baby monitor she had set up in her infant daughter's room. On this night, upon being alerted, she opened the app expecting to see her daughter awake in the crib. But instead she saw this. A man she didn't know is seen crouched down in the room. She saw this and ran to the room to retrieve her daughter and run out the house. She didn't see anyone in the room but wasn't exactly looking. When she called the cops, they arrived and conducted a search of the home but didn't find anything. A very odd detail is that it was found that nothing but the remote to a dog shock collar was stolen from the house. Who this man is and how he got in the house is still unknown.
That's one of, like I said, one of the most scariest things, man. Somebody's in your house and you have no idea. Like, your house is supposed to be your sanctuary, your resting place, and somebody just invade your privacy like that, it can really rattle you. And that guy was in the daughter room. She didn't have no time to think. She just had to scoop her daughter and go. And the dog collar, shot collar was missing. Weird story.
On March 5th, 1974, 17-year-old Amy Billick vanished while hitchhiking to her dad's office in Coconut Grove, Florida. A few days later, 16-year-old twins who lived in the neighborhood claimed they kidnapped Amy and wanted $30,000, but police discovered this was a hoax and the case went cold. Amy's mom, Susan, never gave up. She traveled the country chasing down leads. However, soon she started receiving harassing phone calls from a man claiming to have Amy. This went on for 21 years until one day the caller accidentally used his cell phone instead of a payphone, allowing it to be traced back to Henry Blair, a man who had become obsessed with the case but had no connection to Amy, so her disappearance remains unsolved.
So he just tormented the family because he was obsessed with the case, man. People can truly be monsters sometimes. It never fails. You know what that is.
A convenience store in Japan was getting robbed so often that the owner came up with a genius plan to stop thieves using only these orange balls. See, the convenience store was in the busy city of Yokohama, which gave thieves a huge advantage, because all they had to do was quickly grab what they wanted to steal, then run out to the street where they quickly blended in. To make matters worse, most of them just had a getaway car ready to go, which made it nearly impossible for police to identify them when they drove off. But instead of trying to lock everything in the store behind bars, this store owner simply placed a basket of what seemed like harmless rubber balls near the cash register. Soon a thief grabbed some items before running out to his getaway car, but before he could drive away, the store owner threw one of the orange balls at the car. The moment it made contact, it split open, launching neon orange paint all over the car. He then called police, who easily tracked down the car before arresting the thieves. Since then, these orange balls have become a very popular anti-theft tools found in thousands of stores across Japan. Employees even undergo specialized training to throw the balls more accurately at thieves so police could track them down.
This man built a memorial to Adolf Hitler in Wisconsin. And yes, he was a real ex-Yahtzee soldier. So this is Theodore Junker outside of his memorial, holding a photograph of himself when he was enlisted in the SS. You see, Theodore after World War II had come over to America. And when he got over to America, he decided that America had gotten it all wrong. Just take a look right here at one of the signs inside of his shrine. Adolf did not start World War II. Not one person was gassed to death. He respected all races. Oh, and he protected Paris. This museum that he had set up was a whole shrine, and he was incredibly proud of it. There was tons of controversy in this small town in Wisconsin, and they said he couldn't open it up, but he did anyways. And the whole thing was giving praise to the Yahtzees and their leader. And the whole thing, you can still Google pictures of it, was incredibly bizarre and disturbing. Now, eventually Theodore would die in the year 2013, and shortly afterwards his property went abandoned. And for years, this entire thing sat out in the woods in Wisconsin deteriorating. A very creepy reminder of a very disturbing past. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You have to pause to read some of these plaques. Now, the site was demolished in 2023, but the pictures will live on forever. And I just could not believe this story. I was actually in Wisconsin and someone told me about the abandoned Yahtzee museum in the woods, and I didn't believe them until I Googled it and figured out that it is very real.
Spirit? That was a story that had twists and turns. Is that supposed to be representing like... Is this supposed to be okay. I don't get why people do cosplay like that. That ain't for me, man. Woo. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're true seekers seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up in this video. Hit that post notification bell so you always get notified. you guys are gonna catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.